Welcome to NTD Evening News. Our top story tonight, the Supreme Court striking down most of President Trump's tariffs. In a 6-3 decision, the High Court ruled that the president does not have the authority to unilaterally impose tariffs under a Federal Emergency Powers Act. Arlene Richards breaks down the ruling. President Trump announcing a new 10% global tariff under a different legal authority after the Supreme Court's decision struck down his use of emergency tariff powers. What the president says about the justice's ruling and its impact on his trade powers. Mario Tsu with the details. Lawmakers weigh in after the Supreme Court rules that most of President Trump's Liberation Day tariffs fall outside his authority. Jason Blair has more. The clock is ticking as Iran prepares a nuclear counterproposal. President Trump warns Iran it needs to make a fair deal as U.S. forces are building up in the region. Jason Perry reports. 2 Russian nuclear-capable bombers entering the Alaskan identification zone. Arian Pazdar has how Norad fighter jets responded.
This is NTD Evening News, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here's Tiffany Meyer.
Good evening and thank you for joining us tonight. The Supreme Court today in a 6-3 decision striking down President Trump's tariffs. Arlene Richards has more on their reasons.
The Supreme Court on Friday answering a looming question: whether or not the president has the power to impose sweeping tariffs under an emergency powers law. And the answer is mostly no. In a lengthy, divided, and complicated opinion, a majority of 6 justices don't believe a president has tariff powers under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEPA. Why? Because of their interpretation of the text of the statute. Chief Justice John Roberts, writing the opinion, states, none of IEPA's authorities includes the distinct and extraordinary power to raise revenue. He said no president has ever found such power in IEPA, and that the statute requires the president to identify to Congress that there is an unusual and extraordinary threat. He has to get approval from Congress because of what the Constitution says. Roberts explained that the Constitution gives Congress the power to regulate commerce, or in other words, to impose taxes, which arguably are what tariffs are. And he said that Congress didn't delegate that power to the president under the IEPA statute. The ruling is a blow to President Trump's economic policy. Justice Brett Kavanaugh warns in a dissenting opinion that refunds of billions of dollars would have significant consequences for the U.S. Treasury. Meanwhile, Chinese exporters avoid penalties, which is a blessing in disguise for the Chinese Communist Party. Trump has been using the tariffs as a tool to put China in check over its egregious trade practices, such as intellectual property theft and dumping cheap goods onto American markets. The ruling eases trade barriers for China and impacts the president's manufacturing revival, which is bad for the U.S. economy.
The economy is doing extremely well with this administration and with the tariffs.
Attorney Jonathan Turley on Fox News Friday cautioned that the U.S. doesn't want to take a step back in terms of the economic progress it's made. The ruling also stifles the president's power to act swiftly against the Chinese regime's economic warfare. It effectively benefits China by forcing reliance on a gridlocked American Congress.
The pressure will be now not just on the administration, but on Congress.
And it raises the question of whether the court might block other presidential powers and undermine national security. But Justice Kavanaugh said the court's decision is not likely to greatly restrict presidential tariff authority going forward.
Actually, President Trump could turn around tomorrow and start the process of reimposing tariffs.
Arlene Richards, NTD News.
President Trump is sharply criticizing the Supreme Court following its ruling limiting his use of tariffs, calling some justices a disgrace and suggesting the court may have been influenced by foreign interests. At the same time, the president insists the decision ultimately strengthens his hand, arguing he now has even broader authority to pursue trade restrictions through other legal means. We now go live to NTD's Washington correspondent Mario Tsu. Mari, good evening.
Tiff, good evening. That's right. And what began as a legal setback this morning is now being reframed by President Trump as both justification and momentum for expanding his trade strategy. President Trump is now announcing a new 10% global tariff under a different legal authority after that SCOTUS ruling striking down the use of his emergency tariffs this morning. And he's ultimately arguing that the court's ruling may expand, not weaken his tariff strategy. The president in the James Brady briefing room today was first reacting to the ruling, calling it, quote, deeply disappointing, and saying that he's ashamed of some members of the court for, quote, not having the courage to stand up and do what's right for our country. Take a look.
They also are a, frankly, disgrace to our nation, those justices. They're an automatic no matter how good a case you have. It's a no. But you can't knock their loyalty.
While saying he's ashamed of certain members of the court for, quote, not having the courage to do what is right for our country, President Trump praises Justice Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh for dissenting, thanking them for what he calls their strength, wisdom, and love of country. Meanwhile, President Trump says we're, quote, going to find out when asked if he'll investigate foreign influence over the Supreme Court.
It's my opinion that the court has been swayed by foreign interests and a political movement that is far smaller than people would ever think. I think that foreign interests are represented by people that I believe have undue influence. They have a lot of influence over the Supreme Court, whether it's through fear or respect or friendships.
He says this case is important to him as an issue of economic and national security more than anything else, demonstrating how he's used his tariffs over the past year to lessen trade deficit, settle wars, and reduce illicit drugs coming into the U.S.
China had hundreds of billions of dollars in surpluses with the United States. They rebuilt China. They rebuilt the army. We built China's army by allowing that to happen. I charged China a 20% tariff as a penalty for sending fentanyl in. And that was 20 times more than they could make by selling fentanyl.
What was on October 8th, when the Chinese government said that they were going to put a worldwide export control on any product that had 0.01% Chinese rare earths in it. 24 hours later, President Trump said that he would impose a 100% tariff on China if they did it. They immediately came to the negotiating table.
Despite the court's ruling, the Trump administration says that, in a sense, nothing has changed. President Trump cites a dissent written by Justice Kavanaugh listing the laws the administration could pursue, acknowledging that those processes may be more cumbersome but will ultimately have stronger legal standing.
Now I'll go the way I could have gone originally, which is even stronger than our original choice.
The Supreme Court has taken away the president's leverage, but in a way, they have made the leverage that he has more draconian because they agreed he does have the right to a full embargo.
President Trump adds that the Supreme Court's decision has, quote, made a president's ability to both regulate trade and impose tariffs more powerful and crystal clear.
Foreign countries that have been ripping us off for years are ecstatic. They're so happy. And they're dancing in the streets, but they won't be dancing for long, that I can assure you.
And Tiff, just before this ruling came out, the White House announced President Trump's upcoming visit to China. He'll be visiting from March 31st to April 2nd, with U.S. trade sure to be on the table. Back to you.
All right, Mari, thanks for those updates. Lawmakers around the country are reacting to the Supreme Court's ruling. Jason Blair reports.
On Friday, the Supreme Court ruled against most of President Trump's Liberation Day tariffs put into place last year. Following the ruling, Trump says that he's disappointed, but is also optimistic about other options.
Their decision's incorrect, but it doesn't matter because we have very powerful alternatives that have been approved by this decision.
Lawmakers reacting to the Supreme Court's ruling, Senator Bernie Moreno says SCOTUS's outrageous ruling handcuffs our fight against unfair trade that has devastated American workers for decades. These tariffs protected jobs, revived manufacturing, and forced cheaters like China to pay up. The House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party reacted, saying that tariffs are one of the most effective tools to confront the CCP's economic aggression. A statement from Committee Chairman John Moulinar says China continues to engage in predatory trade practices that hurt American workers, hollow out our manufacturing base, and threaten our national security. Tariffs on China level the playing field for Americans, and President Trump has demonstrated since his first administration that tariffs are one of the few meaningful tools in the U.S. economic security toolkit for confronting China. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries says that it's a win for Americans, saying the Supreme Court decision striking down the harmful Trump tariffs is a big victory for the American people. And Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says it's a victory for the wallets of every American consumer. Congressman Buddy Carter calls it a loss for the American worker, saying the Supreme Court just undercut the president's ability to defend American workers. I'm outraged by this decision. It's clearly judicial overreach. And House Speaker Mike Johnson says no one can deny that the president's use of tariffs has brought in billions of dollars and created immense leverage for America's trade strategy and for securing strong reciprocal America First trade agreements with countries that had been taking advantage of American workers for decades. Jason Blair, NTD News.
In the Middle East, the clock is ticking as the Iranian regime prepares a counterproposal on a nuclear deal with the United States. And President Trump says Iran had better negotiate a fair deal after giving the regime 10 to 15 days to respond. NTD's Jason Perry has the update.
Tensions continue to rise between the United States and Iran over a possible nuclear deal between the two countries. And the U.S. military continues to build up its forces in the region, though some residents in Tehran appear unfazed by the threats, with one man saying, quote, "War could at least bring this matter to a quicker conclusion." And another man said this.
The enemy should not expect us to respond passively or to welcome an attack, under no circumstances. And we are certain that the outcome will be contrary to their expectations. It will be a response that makes the other side regret its actions.
Iran's foreign minister on Friday said this about the talks on MS Now.
What we are now talking about is how to make sure that Iran's nuclear program, including enrichment, is peaceful and would remain peaceful forever.
He added that Iran is prepared for negotiations as well as for war. Tehran is currently preparing a counter-proposal on a nuclear deal with the United States. President Trump saying, quote, "They better negotiate a fair deal," adding that the Iranian regime has recently killed 32,000 of its own people and that Iran was planning to hang hundreds of people a couple of weeks ago.
Hang. Some by crane. They lift them up with a tall crane and they play them around the square. They were going to hang 837 people. And I gave them the word, if you hang one person, even one person, that you're going to be hit right then and there. I wasn't waiting 2 weeks and negotiating. And they gave up the hanging. They didn't hang 837. Supposedly, they didn't hang anybody.
Trump recently gave the Iranian regime 10 to 15 days to reach a nuclear deal and has suggested that the U.S. could take military action against Iran if a deal is not reached. Jason Perry, NTD News.
Two Russian nuclear-capable bombers escorted away by U.S. fighter jets after nearing Alaska. This shortly after the U.S., Russia, and Ukraine hold trilateral peace talks in Geneva. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pozdar has the story.
Two Russian bombers entering the Alaskan Air Defense Identification Zone. Russia's defense ministry says the nuclear-capable strategic bombers completed a routine patrol flight over the international waters in the Bering Sea. The North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD for short, commented, saying it launched fighter jets to intercept, positively identify and escort the aircraft until they departed the Alaskan Air Defense Identification Zone. The incident comes shortly after the US, Russia and Ukraine held trilateral peace talks in Geneva. On Friday, Russian President Vladimir Putin asked Moscow's delegation to report on the outcome of the talks.
They have already reported to me, but I would like all permanent members of the Security Council to be informed firsthand too.
The Kremlin did not provide the video of the report itself, but the White House recently said the three parties did make meaningful progress toward peace. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says a European presence at peace talks in Switzerland is important.
It is important that the Europeans were present in Switzerland. This is exactly how we intend to work going forward, to ensure that Europe's positions are taken into account.
Officials from various European nations were present in Geneva and held talks with the Ukrainians on the sidelines of the two-day trilateral meeting. The White House suggests another set of talks will be held soon. But for now, the fighting continues. Ukrainian officials say at least one civilian is dead and 2 more are injured after an attack on the city of Kharkiv. The strikes caused a fire in a warehouse covering an area of over 30,000 square feet. Local officials in the city of Zaporizhia report an attack as well, saying 3 civilians are injured. Footage shows an aerial bomb damaged the facade, windows and roof of a 4-story residential building. The attacks come less than a week before the 4-year anniversary of Russia's invasion into Ukraine. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
Coming up, what are the impacts of the Supreme Court ruling overturning President Trump's tariffs? Brian Kelsey from the America First Policy Institute joins us to discuss. And how are everyday Americans reacting to the Supreme Court's ruling against President Trump's tariffs? Sam Wong brings us thoughts from folks in D.C. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Now that the Supreme Court has ruled against President Trump's use of tariffs, how are everyday Americans reacting to the decision? NTD's Sam Wong was out on the National Mall in D.C. to hear from the people.
What's your reaction to the Supreme Court's ruling on tariffs this morning?
Well, I think I didn't think about much about tariffs until President Trump came on board. I hope that they get it sorted out to the advantage of our country.
I was disappointed. I was disappointed that it was 6-3. I'd like to see the tariffs stay in place just so we can have leverage on some countries that aren't really playing fair.
That'll just be tied up in court cases for the next 3 years. The Democrats hoping, they get elected and undo everything that he's trying to do to straighten out this country.
I'm sure there's other avenues that he can get this back on our side, but we'll just have to wait and see. I know there's a lot of things that we probably don't know is going on behind closed doors.
Do you think this is a economic national security matter?
Absolutely, it is in the long run.
Everything that I purchase these days, I try to see where it was manufactured. And it's almost impossible to purchase anything on Amazon, for example, that has not been made in China. The more we can make here in the United States, the better our country will be for it.
Well, there's a lot of issues because things are, every time I buy something Chinese, I think I need to wash the blood of a child off of it. Their labor there is different. They don't have the same sort of labor laws that we have, and I believe there's a lot of abuses there.
50 years ago in the 70s, when all this started, people said it wasn't going to work out to the benefit of the American people.
And when they started on what?
When they started manufacturing everything in China and all these overseas countries.
I think over the last years we've lost jobs, and he just wants to bring them back. I think Detroit maybe being an example of that. They're not building the cars in Detroit like they used to. Let's bring jobs back to Detroit. Let's bring them back to the big cities and get people back to work.
And joining us now to unpack the foreign policy impacts of the ruling overturning President Trump's tariffs is Brian Kelsey. He is a senior attorney at the America First Policy Institute. Brian, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you here. A big ruling today. Your reaction and how big of a setback is this for the Trump administration?
Well, look, President Trump lost the battle today, but he will win this tariff war. He has already identified multiple other laws that he can use to impose these tariffs.
On that note, here's Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent weighing in. Let's actually listen to a clip of that now.
6 justices simply ruled that IEEPA authorities cannot be used to raise even $1 of revenue. This administration will invoke alternative legal authorities to replace the IEEPA tariffs. We will be leveraging Section 232 and Section 301 tariff authorities that have been validated through thousands of legal challenges. Treasury's estimates show that the use of Section 122 authority, combined with potentially enhanced Section 232 and Section 301 tariffs, will result in virtually unchanged tariff revenue in 2026.
Your thoughts on that and what we can expect to see next from the Trump administration regarding tariffs?
Yes, at America First Policy Institute, we supported the president's position in this case. We do think that the Supreme Court got it wrong, but the amicus brief that was submitted on our behalf actually identified one of these other laws that President Trump can use to issue these tariffs. And even at oral argument, Justice Alito asked the president's lawyer, well, can't the president just come right back here and issue tariffs under another one of these laws? And then we'll have to litigate this all over again for a whole nother year. And meanwhile, he'll be imposing the exact same tariffs at the exact same amounts. And the answer then was yes. And the answer today is yes. And that's why we saw that that's exactly what President Trump did this morning. In reaction, he was ready for this. And he issued 10% across the board tariffs against all countries. And he has authority under other laws to begin investigations to make sure that other countries do their job and pay their fair share.
On that note, what does this ruling mean for President Trump's plan to restructure global trade?
Well, President Trump is winning these trade wars. He's got trillions of dollars that are being pledged to be invested in America. He's winning for American workers. The economy is larger than it's ever been. The trade deficit is lower than it has been. And at the end of the day, jobs are coming back here to America. So he's gotten countries, the most recent one, of course, was India, that have taken their tariffs down against America to zero. So he's using tariffs to leverage the power of the American economy and the American worker to get good deals for our goods in other countries. And he's going to continue to do that. As Secretary Bessent said, he's just going to have to use other laws to do it.
A big focus from the start has been China. How does this change the dynamic with China, or does it?
Well, those negotiations with China, of course, have been going on for quite some time, and the president still has other arrows in his quiver now to use in those negotiations against China. He will still be able to leverage American tariffs to make sure that China no longer gives us a raw deal. If they're going to be imposing unfair tariffs on us, then we're going to turn around and do the same thing. But I do think that what we will ultimately see, because he still has that leverage and that power under other laws, is I do think that there will be a ratcheting down of that rhetoric as China and the U.S. negotiate toward lower tariff rates on one another.
Now, expanding on that, the House Select Committee on the CCP weighed in, saying China's predatory trade practices have hollowed out American manufacturing and threatened our national security for decades. Tariffs remain one of the most effective tools to confront the CCP's economic aggression and level the playing field for American workers. Now, they call on Congress to pass the Restoring Trade Fairness Act to revoke China's privileged trade status. Your thoughts on the Restore Act and if Congress will pass it?
Well, I do think that there's bipartisan support in Congress for holding the Chinese accountable. I mean, the reality is there have been lots of countries that have taken advantage of America for many years under many presidents. And President Trump is really the first one to stand up for the American worker and say, you're not going to take advantage of us like this anymore. If you're going to impose these ridiculously high tariff rates on us, then we're going to turn around and do it on you. And so I think that because he's taken that strong stand, I do think that he will get support in Congress from both parties behind this idea.
And speaking more of China, here is the president today weighing in after the ruling. Let's listen to a clip of that now.
We were being ripped off by almost every single country in the world had some massive surpluses. China had hundreds of billions of dollars in surpluses with the United States. They rebuilt China. They rebuilt the army. We built China's army by allowing that to happen. I have a great relationship with President Xi, but he respects our country now. Now, what we've done, I charged China a 20% tariff as a penalty for sending fentanyl in. And that was 20 times more than they could make by selling fentanyl. And I said, at some point you're going to say, and they have reduced it. Fentanyl is down by more than 30% coming into our country.
And the president is set to visit China end of March, early April. What could this mean for negotiations?
Well, I do think that the president is still going to have the negotiating power that he needs. He's going to have the leverage that he needs under these other laws. And I think that by then he will have several of these tariffs in place. Some of them went into place basically today or in the next day or two. And then others are going to require investigations to go through the next few months. The president mentioned maybe as much as 5 months, and then they will be imposed. And so he's got all the tools that he needs in his toolbox. He's just going to have to use other laws. And at the end of the day, 3 Supreme Court justices have already blessed this idea. As Justice Kavanaugh wrote, there are other laws that will allow the president to continue to do what he has been doing in the past. And so whenever that's litigated over the course of the whole next year, he just has to pick up a couple more justices out of the remainder. And the majority today said, hey, we're not taking a position on that. So they didn't rule against him on that idea either. And I think they will ultimately be forced to be open to that idea in the law.
Well, Brian Kelsey, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
President Trump saying this ruling has confirmed he has certain authorities, which he will now use even more forcefully than before. What options are still open to him to protect the trade deals he's negotiated? For more analysis, hear from experts tonight on Capitol Report with Steve Lance at 7 p.m. Eastern. And next Tuesday, President Trump will give the first State of the Union address of his second term. What issues will the president talk about in his address, and how has America changed since his first term? Join me along with NTD's Steve Lance and Mari Otsu on Monday, February 23rd at 6 p.m. Eastern for a preview of the major topics the president is expected to cover in the State of the Union. And on Tuesday, join us at 7 p.m. Eastern as we track the president ahead of his speech, hear reactions from lawmakers, and speak with panels on what it all means for you. Don't miss it. Coming up, fake news sites tied to the Chinese Communist Party. A new report says a China-linked network is impersonating major U.S. media outlets and targeting a New York performing arts company founded by victims of communist persecution. Jack Bradley reports. Los Angeles County is suing Roblox, accusing the gaming platform of failing to protect children from predators. Roblox denies the claims and says stronger safeguards are already in place. Christina Corona reports. And Hollywood director Steven Spielberg buys a co-op in New York City. This comes as a workers' union says it's going to need a bigger tax on California billionaires. David Lamb has more. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. A recent report reveals fake websites impersonating major news outlets to spread pro-CCP messages. The campaign is targeting New York-based performing arts company Shenyun, highlighting Beijing's ongoing efforts to silence the group. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has the details.
A recent investigation is exposing a coordinated Chinese influence operation. Researchers at Graphica identify 43 domains and 37 subdomains, all hosted in China, impersonating outlets like the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Guardian, among others. They're calling it Spamiflage, a propaganda campaign that relies on fake accounts and coordinated dissemination. A main target is Shenyun Performing Arts, a New York-based company that showcases traditional Chinese culture and portrays China before communism. Shenyun also depicts the Chinese regime's human rights abuses and suppression of religion. The company was founded in the United States by practitioners of Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa, a spiritual discipline based on meditation and moral teachings, and that's been severely persecuted by the Chinese regime since 1999.
My first MC partner was from Beijing, and the National Security Bureau would visit her family in Beijing every single weekend, telling them, we know what your daughter is doing, get her to stop it. We had an erhu player, this is a musician soloist. When she was performing with us, her husband was jailed for 3 years and tortured.
Researchers say that many of these spoofed websites attacking Shenyun were created over the past 5 years. The investigation also uncovers contracts between Chinese government organizations and public relations firms that promote this content. In one example, the city of Changchun paid a Chinese PR firm more than $15,000 to publish hundreds of promotional reports and videos in what were described as international media networks. According to the report, 41 X accounts and 3 Facebook pages amplified the articles in a coordinated manner, using randomly generated usernames, stock profile photos, and almost no followers. They posted identical content at the same time, criticizing Falun Gong and Shenyun. And most of the domains appear to target Chinese audiences, but several are designed for English-speaking readers overseas. The concern is that the campaign exploits both mainstream media branding and Western social media platforms, giving fabricated stories an air of credibility and extending Beijing's pressure campaign beyond China's borders. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Los Angeles County is taking legal action against Roblox. Officials claim the popular gaming platform fails to protect children from inappropriate content and online predators, allegations the company strongly denies. NTD's Christina Corona tells us more.
Los Angeles County has filed a lawsuit against Roblox, accusing the online gaming platform of failing to protect children from inappropriate content and online predators. Roblox denies the allegations. In the complaint, the county alleges that children were exposed to sexually explicit material, grooming, and exploitation, and that the company chose profit over safety. County officials also point to what they describe as weak moderation and ineffective age verification systems. LA County Board Chair Hilda Solis says the lawsuit is about accountability. She argues that while Roblox presents itself as a safe space for children, it has allowed grooming and exploitation to occur on the platform. County Counsel Don Harrison said in a statement, "It is about a company that gives pedophiles powerful tools to prey on innocent and unsuspecting children." Roblox reports more than 151 million daily active users. The company says over 40% of its users are under 13, and nearly 75% of U.S. children ages 9 through 12 play regularly. The county is seeking an injunction, financial penalties of up to $2,500 per violation per day, and changes to the platform's safeguards. Roblox says that it takes swift action against rule violators, works with law enforcement, and continues to strengthen its protections. Roblox also says that users can't send images in chat and must complete facial age verification to access certain features on the platform. Christina Corona, NTD News.
Influential movie director Steven Spielberg and his wife moving to the Big Apple. He's directed popular films, including Raiders of the Lost Ark and Jaws. This comes as a workers' union says it's going to need a bigger tax on billionaires in California. NTD's David Lamb reports.
Hollywood director Steven Spielberg is the latest California billionaire to buy property outside the Golden State, as voters prepare to decide on a billionaire wealth tax this year. Known for iconic movies like E.T., the Indiana Jones series, and Jaws,
you're going to need a bigger boat.
The renowned Hollywood director recently purchased an apartment in a New York City co-op. Other wealthy individuals, such as Mark Zuckerberg and Sergey Brin, have also purchased homes outside California. Zuckerberg and his wife recently bought property in South Florida's so-called billionaire bunker. People have speculated that the state's proposed billionaire wealth tax could be motivating high net worth individuals to look for residency elsewhere. Spielberg's spokesperson told the LA Times Steven's move to the East Coast is both long planned and driven purely by his and Kate Capshaw's desire to be closer to their New York-based children and grandchildren. According to California's wealth tax proposal, residents with a net worth of more than $1 billion would be hit with a one-time emergency wealth tax of 5% to help cover health care and education for the state. The proposal is backed by a health care workers union. California Governor Gavin Newsom says he opposes the wealth tax proposal. If the measure is approved by voters, any billionaire who was a California resident on January 1st, 2026 would owe the tax. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
Meanwhile, UFOs are in the spotlight. President Trump yesterday ordering government agencies to release information about extraterrestrial life and related phenomena. The move follows former President Obama's comments on alien life in a podcast interview last weekend.
Barack Obama said that aliens are real. Have you seen any evidence of non-human visitors to Earth?
Well, he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. You know?
So aliens are real?
Well, I don't know if they're real or not. I can tell you he gave classified information. He's not supposed to be doing that. He made a big mistake. He took it out of classified information. No, I don't have an opinion on it. I never talk about it. A lot of people do. A lot of people believe it. Do you believe it, Peter?
Obama was asked in an interview whether aliens were real, to which he replied, "They are real, but I haven't seen them, and they're not being kept in Area 51. Obama later said the odds are good there is life out there, but the chances we've been visited by aliens is low. In 2023, the White House acknowledged that there had been unexplained aerial phenomena reported by pilots and the Navy and Air Force. Coming up at the Olympics, the U.S. and Canada look to set up another gold medal game in hockey, while Norway continues their overall Olympic dominance. Dave Martin joins us to discuss. Now for your sports news, we're joined by NTD's Dave Martin. Dave, we've got some NBA news, but let's start in the Olympics as we're down to the final days here. How did Team USA do today?
They did well today. Maybe not as awesome as yesterday was when they had 2 golds and a silver. Still got a gold and a bronze today. Now, American Alex Ferreira won the men's free ski half pipe with a really flawless final run there. That is his first career gold medal. Now, he also won silver in this event in 2018. And bronze 4 years ago, so big congratulations to him. Now, meanwhile, American Corinne Stoddard won bronze today in the women's short track 1,500 meter speed skating final. That is her first career Olympics medal, so very good congratulations to her as well. Elsewhere at the games, though, the focus was really on the men's hockey semifinal actions. Now, we had somewhat of an unexpected thriller in the Canada versus Finland game. For the second straight game, the Canadians trailed in the final period. And for the second straight game, they somehow came out victorious. Now, Nathan MacKinnon scored the game winner with just 35 seconds left in the game as Canada won 3-2. But they trailed 2-1 earlier in the period with just under 10 minutes left. That set up, though, McKinnon's winner in the final minute. In the second semifinal, USA rolled over Slovakia, winning 6-2. So that sets up a US versus Canada gold medal game. As you see here in the medal count, Norway with now 17 Olympic golds. That is a Winter Olympics record. US though in second with 10 golds and 29 overall medals. So Team USA doing well.
Still up there, and as you mentioned yesterday, there were a couple of big highlights for Team USA, including Alysa Liu's figure skating gold.
Yeah, a spectacular performance by Alysa Liu. Still being talked about today, the first American to win a figure skating gold since 2002 in the women's. That was Sarah Hughes, by the way, back then. Here's what Liu said afterwards about her impending fame and about her experience with the other Olympic skaters.
I have no idea how I'm gonna deal with it. Probably wigs. I'm gonna wear some wigs when I go outside. No, I'm playing. I hope that, with all this attention, I can at least raise awareness about like mental health in sports and mental health in general. And I think my story is pretty cool, and so I hope that inspires some people as well. Oh my God. Well, where do I start? They are such incredible athletes, and I'm just honored that I got to skate with them here like this entire time. This experience has been really fun for me. I love practices, and getting to watch them, and I learned a lot from them too, was like really incredible. And yeah, I mean, they're just the best. They're so goated.
So she is all smiles there. I'm guessing plenty of endorsements will soon be coming her way.
Definitely a lot of joy yesterday, especially her jumping up and down on the podium with her skates.
Yeah, I can't even stand on skates, so very impressive.
But also yesterday, we had the women's hockey's, the U.S. team beating Canada for gold in dramatic fashion.
Yeah, there have been several thrilling hockey games this week. That might have been the most dramatic, though. Team USA shut out for the first 58 minutes. They didn't score until 2 minutes left in the game. That's when Hillary Knight deflected a goal in with the goalie pulled, meanwhile. That tied the game at 1. Then Megan Keller won it in sudden death overtime with a breakaway goal to give the U.S. the gold medal. Here's what the team said afterwards.
Obviously we peppered their goaltender a lot and, picked up momentum throughout the game, but, want to run out of time, especially with a great team. And so to find the back of the net, I was like, here we go. Like, this is ours. And, I said it before, when Meg walked there, I knew the puck was going in the back of the net. And I think that's just, it's a special feeling. It's a rare feeling, but you get that feeling with this group.
Honestly, we talked about it going into overtime, playing not to lose and playing to win. And I think a lot of times, you get a little nervous trying to make a move. And, when Heisey made a great pass up to me and just saw one defender, I thought, why not? Let's take a chance here and try and get to the net. Yeah, really special moment. Again, we're not there without the entire team, so can't wait to celebrate with them.
Yeah, they were so dominant in this run. They outscored their opponents in the 7 games 33-2. I mean, that was some serious domination. 3rd hockey gold all-time for the USA women's team since hockey became an Olympic sport in 1998. Only Canada, of course, has more with 5, but big congratulations to them.
For now, go Team USA.
Yes.
Shifting gears, though, to the NBA now. Golden State Warriors star Steph Curry has been out since the end of January with a knee injury. When is he expected to return? Yeah, well, according to a report by ESPN, Curry was evaluated yesterday. His MRI came back clean, but he still has lingering soreness in his knee, sometimes known as runner's knee. But reportedly, he will be reevaluated in 10 days, so that would put it at March 1st. Now, this issue came up on January 24th. Curry tried to play through it. Eventually, they had to shut him down. I think the thinking was that after the All-Star break, he would be able to come back, but that All-Star break ended last night. He was not back. Now, fortunately for the Warriors, they got Kristaps Porzingis back last night. Now, Porzingis was acquired in a trade earlier in February, but he was still injured at the time, dealing with Achilles tendonitis in his leg. Last night, they slow-played really Porzingis' return. He only played 18 of the 48 minutes. Still scored 12 points, and the Warriors really outscored Boston by a lot, 15 points, while he was on the floor. They still lost to the Celtics, but they should have a pretty good team once they get Curry, Porzingis, Green, and Butler all healthy. But Butler, I'm afraid, is not going to be back this season. That's an all-star lineup.
That is their all-star lineup. If they can get one more run, maybe get a 5th title out of this core. We'll see, but that wouldn't be until next year. I don't see it happening this year, personally.
All right, well, things to look forward to.
Yes, I will be continuing to monitor that situation.
And we'll be going you for follow-ups.
I'm sure you will.
Davis Allis, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Tiff.
And that's all for today's news. For round-the-clock coverage, visit us at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Good night.